accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting will take place at Town Hall at 7:30 p.m. today, Tuesday, October 16, 2018. Please stand to salute the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Levy?
Here.
Ms. Zuckerberg?
Here.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Here.
Ms. Coletta?
Here.
And Mayor Burton.
Here. I would like to amend the agenda by adding a resolution, 18-237, resolution to authorize legal representation to the agenda. And also removing resolution 18-236, authorizing closed session, current litigation, Millburn versus Bogomilsky, from the consent agenda to be voted on separately. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Before we have proclamations, I want to remind everybody that until you're invited up to speak when we open the floor to the public, this is a business meeting, which means we conduct the business of the town, which means that the business is conducted up at this dais, and it is not conducted from the public gallery. I would appreciate your appropriate behavior. Thank you. All right, I have a proclamation for Red Ribbon Week, and I believe that Heather Jenquin is going to come up. Whereas alcohol and drug abuse in this nation has reached epidemic numbers, and whereas it is imperative that visible, unified prevention education efforts by community members be launched to eliminate the demand for drugs and the access to drugs and alcohol. Whereas the Governor's Council on Alcohol and Drug Abuse and the Millburn Municipal Alliance Committee are sponsoring the 2018 Red Ribbon Campaign, offering citizens the opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to a drug-free lifestyle, no use of illegal drugs, no illegal use of legal drugs. And whereas the Township of Millburn commits its resources to ensure the success of the Red Ribbon Campaign and encourages local businesses, schools, religious institutions, community service organizations to demonstrate their commitment to drug-free, healthy lifestyles by wearing and displaying red ribbons during this week-long campaign. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Township of Millburn does hereby support October 23rd to 31st, 2018 Red Ribbon Week and encourages its citizens to participate in alcohol and drug education programs and activities, making a visible statement that we are strongly committed to promoting a drug-free community. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, committee, for your continued support of the Millburn Municipal Alliance Committee. And this year, we had a red ribbon making party with the Friday Friends from the Millburn Senior Services Program and our Millburn 7th grade core peer leader program. And it's an intergenerational program that they get together, they make the ribbons, they have lunch together, they kind of share each other's stories. And so the ribbons have been distributed to all the schools, or in the process of being distributed and hung, so they will be displayed next week around town. And we are doing programming within the schools. In the elementary school, we're bringing in a mindfulness and meditation program for the younger kids as a means of giving them the tools and skills at a young age to fight depression, anxiety, stress that even our youngest students are suffering with more and more. Giving them those tools that they can then build on and use going forward, which will help them to resist peer pressure and bullying as they get older. The middle school has had, Dr. Fallon came in this month He's a regular each year at the Millburn Middle School to talk about acceptance and diversity and finding, knowing your true value as a person. And then we have Scott Chesney coming tomorrow, or Thursday, for the 6th grader, and Detective Ed, I think, spoke today with the 7th grader. So we have a lot going on within our schools. We hope the community will continue to support us. As you know, the abuse of alcohol and drugs in our town and in New Jersey throughout the state is something that we have to be focused on, because there are a lot of people that are suffering from this. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the work you do. Deputy Mayor Rosenberg will read the proclamation recognizing Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and will also be reading a statement provided by the Domestic Violence Response Team, since they cannot be present since we're being live streamed.
Whereas home should be a place of warmth, unconditional love, peace, and tranquility, and whereas the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy and dignity, security, and humanity due to the systematic use of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and economic control, and whereas the problems of domestic violence may affect all economic, racial, and societal groups, including children and the elderly, and whereas the impact of domestic violence is wide-ranging, directly affecting individuals and society as a whole, here in Millburn Township, in the state of New Jersey, and throughout the United States and the world, and whereas domestic violence may be supported by societal indifference and lack of knowledge, now therefore, in recognition of the important work done by domestic violence programs and victim advocates, in particular the work of the Millburn Domestic Violence Response Team and the Millburn Police Department, that the Millburn Township Committee of the Township of Millburn, the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, hereby proclaims the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We urge all citizens to actively participate in the scheduled activities and programs to work toward improving victim safety and holding perpetrators of domestic abuse accountable for their action against individual victims and our society as a whole. And because we're being live streamed for anonymity of our contributors, the Millburn Short Hills Domestic Violence Crisis Intervention Team volunteer advocates are members of the community who work in conjunction with the police to provide support, information, and referrals to victims of domestic abuse. The volunteer advocates are trained to empower victims to make decisions about their own lives. Members of the team serve anonymously. Because the Township Committee now live streams its meetings, we're unable to be here in person to accept your proclamation. We remain deeply appreciative of the committee's recognition that domestic violence impacts individuals and families across all economic and community strata. We would also like to acknowledge the dedication of the Millburn Police Department with whom we work. Their support and partnership with us is crucial to our work. Thank you.
Thank you. Our county representative is not here. Reports. Mr. Holmesy?
I like the plan.
No reports. Ms. Eklund?
Nothing.
Ms. Lieberberg?
No.
Mr. Levy?
Well, the Millburn Township Recreation Committee met last week, and it's largely an update on the last report I provided with regard to the status of the fields and to status of negotiations with East Orange with regard to possibly partnering with East Orange on a field off Parsonage Hill, and the status of Little League and Short Hills Baseball, where the Recreation Commission will be speaking to Little League about opening up its fall baseball, which some parents have accused that is not open to the town, as it's open up to a select few. So that will be investigated. But again, largely it was just an update on the prior meeting that I attended, and there was no other action taken at that meeting.
Ms. Rosenberg?
DMDA met last week. They'll be presenting their budget shortly. The best news is, though, that Santa has survived another winter. We are having the Snowflake Parade. There was some issues as to whether we were going to have it or not have it, since the DMDA is focusing more on business development than events. But we are partnering with the Chamber of Commerce, and we'll be doing the Snowflake Parade.
There we go. Legal? Anything?
No report, Mayor.
Okay. Before we have the budget hearing, is there anyone from the DMDA who would like to be heard?
Yes.
We, as you all know, we had submitted our budget in August.
Could you just identify yourself?
Sure, David Sorkin, 77 Fairfield Drive, President of the DMDA. We submitted our budget in August, and it was scheduled for public hearing tonight, a few months out. We had requested, we let Alex and the clerk know a few weeks back that we'd like to postpone the hearing to the following meeting. Some of the reasons being, first of all, we have a very promising executive director search going on. We're hopeful that by the next meeting, we might even have a candidate selected. We've been recently funded, so we want to be buttoned up with our 2018 spending, so we can speak more about 2019. And we also feel it's appropriate to have the opportunity to speak to some of the property owners and engage in a bit of a dialogue with them before the public hearing. So as a board, we voted to respectfully move our hearing to the following township committee meeting in November.
November 20th.
November 20th.
Thoughts? Does anyone object to adjourning the budget hearing for the DMDA to November 20th?
Just one comment, the budget isn't changing. It's been posted. It's the same budget that we discussed and it's been submitted, so we're not going to change anything between them.
So may I ask,
Yes.
by ordinance, are we entitled to do this? And why are we then waiting? If it's the exact same budget you're going to present 2 weeks from now, or that would actually be a month from now?
Well, just some of the reasons we said, some of the property owners, we wanted to be able to engage in a dialogue with them, at mutual request before we bring to the public hearing. Like, we were just funded, we're funding up our 2018 spending, we just want to be able to have a stronger conversation.
But the line items are not going to be changed?
It can't.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I mean, I understand the reason you're saying, but if it's going to be the same exact line items, and by ordinance we have to get this budget approved.
Well, we have the time,
Mm-hmm.
we do have the luxury of the time if we so agree
Okay.
to adjourn to November 20th, because we'll still get the budget in time,
We will.
right? Okay. Ms. Millburn?
I just had one question about the 2019 budget.
Sure.
Professional services, you've allocated $30,000. Do you know offhand what you happen to have spent for 2018? And is this 2019 number reflective based upon those numbers? Because I know there were some extraordinary expenses in 2018.
Right, well,
so-
again, it's hard to compare to the 2018 numbers because we weren't staffed at all in 2018 until, hopefully sometime in this quarter. So another reason we just want to be able to button up who we have and we're going to be allocating it. It's going to be hard to go apples to apples with 2018, but we feel that that's an appropriate number. We also benchmarked our numbers against some of the other bid and SID numbers in terms of percentage of spending, which is how we got to one of our numbers over the summer when we hadn't been funded or staffed at all.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Here?
We have a procedural issue because it's on the agenda as a hearing, not as a motion. Suppose just an application, no one could move it and nothing would happen. But because it's listed as a hearing, I think the agenda has to be amended.
Well, you could bring a motion that would defer or carry the ordinance and authorize the clerk to republish for a hearing date to be set for November 20th at 7:30 PM at Town Hall.
That's fine, we just can't not do anything.
No, correct, absolutely right.
We have to take an affirmative step to cause this to happen.
That's
Clearly,
correct.
but first I want to see whether or not there is a consensus that we're willing to agree to their request
I have no objection.
and move it down to November 20th. So that's what I'm just trying to do first.
No objection.
Okay. All right, so if that's the case,
I'll make,
you can make a motion?
move to defer 18-225, the DMDA 2019 budget hearing to the clerk publishes for the next township committee meeting.
Second.
Wait, you have to state the date of the hearing.
Yeah, I was also going to say 18225 is just reading the DMDA budget by title. 18226 is actually adopting, that is the public hearing and then adopting the budget, so you do both of those.
Right.
I was going to do two separate ones. but
Okay, fair do it, that's fine.
Do it in one, then I'll amend my motion. Move to, what's the date of the next one?
November 20th, 7:30.
Move to defer the DMDA 2019 budget hearing 18-2025, the DMDA budget by title, and the public hearing 18-226, adopt 2019 DMDA budget hearing. That the clerk publish it for hearing on November 20, 2018.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Blythe?
Yes.
And Mayor Burton?
Yes.
Thank you all. We look forward to having your hearing at the next meeting.
Okay, so I need also a motion to defer consideration of special resolution 2019 SID hearing, the public hearing 18-227 to adopt the 2019 Special Improvement District Rule.
And to authorize the clerk to republish the hearing for November 20th at 7 p.m. in Town Hall.
These two are related then?
Yes.
All right, I'll make the motion, so I originally did this one. So I move to defer and have the clerk publish for the next meeting, November 20, 2018, Special Resolution 2019 SID hearing, public hearing 18-227, adoption of 2019 Special Improvement District Rule.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Blythe?
Yes.
And Mayor Burton?
Yes. I also have to remove this. I need also a motion to remove Resolution 18-236 to authorize the closed section, oh, we did that already, right? Okay, I did it earlier. All right, so we have the consent agenda is next, we have the bills list. Authorizing refund of tax overpayments, authorize a grant application for Mountain View Road, which is for the curb, thank you, mill and pave for Mountain View between Whittingham and Wyoming. Settlement, to approve a settlement agreement with respect to insurance coverage. A contract purchase, 2018 Sprinter van with sewer inspection equipment, approve raffle license and add service for Beck Engineering for the police department roof. So is there any public comment with respect to any of the items on the consent agenda? Consent agenda only. Anything from the committee?
May I just ask for clarification of what police off-duty trust fund is? I don't know if public, and I don't really fully understand that.
Sure, you're
Police off-
referencing the bills list?
Yes.
Okay. The police off-duty trust fund is the account in which, when you see officers out at construction sites, that work is not paid for by the township. It is actually paid for by the contractors that hire those officers when they are off-duty. They pay a certain rate that's established by the township for that work. When they put money into escrow to pay those officers, that is the account that is used.
I think that's good to know. A lot of people don't realize that. They think that we're paying for all these officers at all these construction sites or whatever's going on in town. So I think that's really good to explain. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the committee? May I have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda, resolutions 18-228 through 234?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Blythe?
Yes.
And Mayor Burton?
Yes. May I have a motion to approve resolution 18-236 to authorize closed session, current litigation, Millburn versus Bogomilsky? May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Ballego?
Yes.
And Mayor Barsney?
Yes.
Can I say yes? I can't be part of that. I didn't
That's
think so,
correct.
so
Yeah, we're
don't ask
busy.
me.
Yes.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 18-224, authorizing
237.
uh, 224, authorizing the person-to-person transfer of plenary retail consumption liquor license, CB Millburn LLC, doing business as Charlie Brown Steakhouse, to JGIL Millburn LLC.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Ballego?
Yes.
And Mayor Barsney?
Yes. May I have a motion to approve resolution 18-237, authorizing legal representation?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Ballego?
Yes.
And Mayor Barsney?
Yes. Okay. The next item on the agenda concerns ordinances 2513-18 and 2514-18, which were adopted on first reading by the Township Committee on October 2nd. Ordinance 2513-18 deals with time limit parking on Essex Street, and ordinance 2514-18 establishes new fire permit fees and prohibits the possession and use of sparklers and certain non-explosive devices and novelties in the public parks and recreation areas. Due to the fact that the township was unable to publish notice of the second reading and hearing on these ordinances within the time required, these ordinances will not be considered this evening. Proper notice has now been published in the item on October 11th, stating that the ordinances will be taken up on second reading and for hearing at the next regular public meeting of the Township Committee on November 20th, and accordingly, I am announcing the deferral of these ordinances to that date. Mr. Levy, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2515-18.
Yes, 2515-18, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition by purchase or condemnation of easement interest in a portion of the real property located at 10 Heron Circle, known as Block 507, Lot 9. Purposes: ordinance is to increase the stormwater pumping station installed in 1994 at the place known as Gilbert Place from 30 cubic feet per second to 95 cubic feet per second. The appraised value of the easement is $4,700. The business administrator or a firm is authorized to submit a written offer for the purchase of this drainage easement and to negotiate its acquisition. Absent that, we are authorizing the business administrator of the firm to acquire it through condemnation. I move that the ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, November 20, 2018.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Ballego?
Yes.
And Mayor Barsney?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know that that's the substitute. Okay, but the ordinance numbers are correct. Just this reference at the top is not. Well, it's just on, it's a reference number. saying we sponsored it. It's not a substantive change to the ordinance. The ordinance number as it's written is correct. Okay. Right. So this is this is what's going to be published. All right.
Millburn, you're scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2516-18.
I'd like to present an ordinance entitled 2516-18, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition by purchase or condemnation of an easement interest in a portion of the real property located at 14 Haran Circle, known as Block 507, Lot 10. This ordinance is being proposed to authorize the acquisition of a rectangularly shaped drainage easement interest, as well as a temporary construction easement in a portion of property located in the township on which to locate pipes and related flood control equipment underground. The installation of the pipes and equipment will allow the existing Gilbert Place stormwater pumping station to handle a higher volume of stormwater. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on the first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law on the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, November 20th.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Ball-Eygley?
Yes.
And Mayor Barsney?
Yes. Does any committee member have an item of new business to address?
I do. In January, the TC voted to approve Resolution 18-005, which designates the item of Millburn Short Hills and the Star Ledger as the official newspaper. It also authorized TAP into Millburn Short Hills as the official authorized, quote, online news service for notices and other matters under the Open Public Meeting Act. Most recently, I believe that the TAP has abandoned its mission and is editorializing its own beliefs and representing them as facts to our residents. We are here to serve all the members of the community. Residents should not be subjected to reading only one point of view. And I think the editorializing regarding complete streets and the promotion of one candidate is unfair and unbalanced. I believe we on the Township Committee need to take a closer look at this publication and either encourage a more balanced stance by the editor or perhaps look at an alternative for posting our municipal information that not will be editorialized by the owner. And I just would welcome my fellow committee members to take a serious look at this.
Thank you. Any other items of new business?
May I comment on this?
Of course.
If we were to no longer use TAP and just have the Millburn, do we have to have an online record? Because before TAP was in existence, we just had the Millburn item in the Star Ledger, correct?
Correct.
So how did TAP come into being, our online news of record?
I believe that was several years ago. It was requested. The township did not have any online official newspaper.
And
it was
now,
approved at one point.
well, we all know there is a potential conflict of interest of the owner of this franchise and his position in town. Could we go back to just having the Millburn item and the Star Ledger? And now that we have Millburn Facebook, we have Swift 911.
You're
I'm
asking-
asking
yeah,
you,
yeah,
as the
the-
administrator.
Sure, they can do as they please,
Mhm.
as they please.
Mayor?
Can I have a question?
Wait. Are you done, Ms. Egram?
I am.
Okay, no, I just
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
want to cut you off. Mr. Lee?
I'll defer to committee person Rosenberg first.
I just wanted to clarify when you said "we all," that you're speaking just for yourself.
I am.
Maybe Mrs. Lieberberg, but not for all of us, correct?
I'm speaking for just myself, Diane Aglow.
Yes, it's to say that we all think that there's some sort of bias.
I corrected myself, Jody.
Thank you.
I'd like to build on that then. What is the conflict that you see, that you individually see about the owner of the tap? And I don't know who the owner of the tap is, but what
Well-
conflict does she or he have with Millburn Township or Millburn Township Committee?
This is nothing that I'm just presenting as, for the first time, he is a Republican district leader whose mission is, just as all district leaders, if you're Democrat or Republicans, we are a partisan committee, and their mission is to get their candidate elected. And I believe that I had some dealings personally with myself when I ran twice, that his information was coming out in certain slanted ways, and I don't want to give my personal story of how I encountered problems with Jonathan Sim, but I'm seeing again that he printed an article that he had information to that I didn't even have information to.
Okay.
Okay, but the purpose of TAP, for our purpose of TAP, is to publish information, not to editorialize on the information. So if you're accusing TAP of editorializing, for instance, our agenda or anything else that's published, that's one alleged conflict. If you're saying that the editorials in TAP promote one candidate or series of values over another, that's independent of whether the TAP is publishing our agenda. You could arguably take the same position with the New Jersey Star Ledger and/or the Item if you find that those respective publications' editorials are inconsistent with your values or other values. The goal is to publish information, not to condemn for that purpose a publication that merely is publishing our agenda and other things.
Well, they're not just publishing the agenda, they're publishing specific points of view, and information is being interpreted that I believe doesn't necessarily present a balanced viewpoint.
Okay, excuse me, may I? What newspaper presents a balanced news? I mean, this whole, excuse me for saying so, I think this argument is sort of, I mean, that's what newspapers do. They editorialize, they try to reflect their points of view. People say that the New York Times, the Post, whatever it may be. Every newspaper reflects a point of view. To say we're not going to use a particular newspaper because it doesn't reflect our point of view sounds to me somewhat inappropriate. But that's just my belief. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Well, I was going to advocate the same position. We could argue for hours about what
Which we won't.
positions
Right.
newspapers take, liberal, Democrat, independent, or the like, which isn't productive or conducive to this conversation. But instead, if the purpose of these publications is to publish our materials, which it is by statute, then there's no reason to withdraw that publication right to a publication merely because one or more of us may disagree, even if I disagree, with editorial positions that it takes. Now, if it wasn't publishing our material properly, that would be a different position, but that is not the knowledge, as I understand it.
Is that your concern, that they're taking what we're giving them to put like a notice, and they're doing something to our notices that are not, they're doing something to the notices? Is that what you're saying?
My concern is that they are presenting information and material that only reflects one point of view. And I don't think it is for them to make a point of view. I think it is for them to present the information in a nonpartisan viewpoint. And I don't think that's being executed right now, either as a source of balanced material.
Thank you. Any other items of new business? Any old business to address? Then we are at public discussion. When invited to speak, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and address, speak into the podium microphone so that your comments can be understood by all and properly recorded. Whenever an audience or committee member reads from a prepared statement, please give or email a copy to the township clerk. You can either hand it to Megan or email it to cgotke@millburntwp.org. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, we ask that all speakers limit their comments to 3 minutes. We're not going to use the clock unless people abuse the privilege of speaking. I am also going to ask that you all remember, we're members of the same community. We're neighbors. Please, there is no reason for anybody to speak inappropriately at this meeting, either to each other or to us. And I ask that you all act respectfully. Okay? Thank you. So if you wish to be heard, The podium, the microphone is open.
Good evening. Judy Rosenthal, 12 Marion. And I would like to suggest that the Township Committee amend the building code to require that all new homes have solar panels. Most of the homes going up in the township are in the $2 to $3 million range, and I think that homes at that price point can easily absorb the cost. This would serve the purpose of taking a lot of homes off the grid, which is going to be especially important given the increased number of storms that we're seeing in our community, throughout the state, and throughout the country. So I hope that you do that. The other thing, I just have a couple questions. You know, next to Common Lot, they're like doing some kind of construction. What are they putting in there?
A building.
Duh. For what?
It's an office building.
An office building. Okay, fine. I was just curious. I don't have any problem with it. I was just curious. And then lastly, my question is, what is the new time limit going to be for parking on Essex Street? Are they increasing it, decreasing it, changing the price? What?
The ordinance that was, 2 hours.
Yeah, it's increasing, some of the spots are 1 hour currently. It's
Okay,
increasing
interesting. Okay,
To 2.
okay, fine. Just curious.
And by the way,
Yeah.
Mr. Serio is here, and I forgot about him, so now you have to wait till the end of the meeting. He's our Essex County representative.
Ooh, thank you.
Good evening. Just a few announcements. This Saturday, October 20th, is the Computer Electronics Recycling Day, taking place in Cedar Grove from the hours of 9 to 3. Also on Saturday, there's the Strut Your Mutt dog costume competition right here in South Mountain Dog Park. Registration begins at 1:15, parade begins at 2. It's a free event and there'll be prizes. Lastly, on October 26th, which is a Friday, the Essex County Gardens Aglow is taking place in Montclair at the Presby Gardens. They're going to have decorative pumpkins and activities for the children, and that's also a free event, and that begins at 6 o'clock. And that's the report.
Thank you.
Are we allowed to ask questions of him?
Well, Brandon.
Okay.
No, let's do it privately.
Outside. Okay.
Yes. May I have a motion to adjourn? May I have a motion to adjourn?
Close public session.
Motion to close public discussion.
So moved.
Next second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
We're adjourned.